Hey guys, hope you're all having a great day and welcome back to another episode in the How to Checkmate series, and today I'll be showing you guys how to checkmate with the king and the rook. Before we get into this, I do highly suggest that you go back and watch my previous video on the how to checkmate with two rooks if you don't know how to already, because this method is basically a more advanced method of that. As you can see, we only have one rook instead of two. So a link will be in the description to that video, so make sure you learn how to do that first and then come back to this video. So we'll get into this now. So in this method of checkmate, the ideas between the two rook checkmate and the one rook checkmate are somewhat the same, as in we will be controlling the files using the rook, and we will be using the rook to slowly push the king back to the edge of the board. However, the king is required in this method, as instead of the rook we're going to use opposition to block off the squares in front of the king, because whereas before we had another rook to block off a whole file, we need the king to block off the squares. So considering that the ideas are still the same, we want to start with a move like this, just cutting off the file and not allowing the king to come to any of these squares, and just taking control of some of the squares around it. So obviously, as I showed you guys in the previous video, the king does not want to come back and concede any space, because we will just push the rook forward again and control more space. So what they will do here is, like in the previous video, they'll try and come to attack your rook. Now this is where we bring our king in. We bring the king in here. We try to take some space. So king keeps coming along, he's coming to attack our rook, and now in a position like this we will switch to the other side of the board, so that now if the king comes here, we will move our rook up and the king will be forced back. So obviously black doesn't want their king to be forced back, so what they'll do is they'll move along, we move along here, they move along again, and we move along. And can you see now that they've basically run out of room to move their king to, which means they're now forced to go opposite the king. And like I just said, when this position arises, we just move the rook up and the king is forced to go back. So always remember, in a position like this where the kings are opposite each other, we want to be able to move our rook up so that the king is forced back. So king will be forced back. We bring our king in again, and it's the same method. Well, it depends really, depends which way they go, because if they go this way, then what you would do in this position here is, can you see how if we go here, it would be black to move. So although we have got our kings opposite each other, we aren't able to move our rook up to check the king. So what you want to do in a position like this is just make a wasting move with the rook. So now it's black's turn to move. So now if they go opposite the king, we will just move the rook up, and then if they go here, we go here, they go here, and the kings are opposite each other. And that's how you would do it if that position arose. So after we bring the king in, if they come this way, what we want to do now is we switch our rook again. Because can you see? If they go opposite, we move our rook up. So we have our little race with the kings again. They move to the edge of the board, and then we get this position again where the king is forced to come here. Then we move the rook up, they go here, we bring our king in. Remember, if they go this way, then we will just be able to move along. Not move along, sorry, we will make a wasting move with the rook, and then it will be our turn to move, and we'll be checkmating him in a couple moves. So if they prolong it and go this way, we want to switch again, because remember, if they go opposite your king, then we will check them, but this time it will be checkmate. So we have a little race with the kings again. He goes along like that. And then the same position arises where kings are opposite each other, we bring the rook up, and then that's checkmate. Yeah, that's just basically do it. I'll be going into deeper into some things to watch out for, just so that you guys can make sure you get it right if you ever get it into a game. Okay, so this is one of the first positions that I wanted to show you that might sometimes come up. So if this was black to move, then black is forced to one square and one square only. They'd be forced to come here. And if they come here, then we would just move our rook here and that would be checkmate. However, this combines the idea, because this is white to move, we combine the idea of the wasting move of the rook so that we can deliver checkmate. Now, what we want to do is sort of have this position, but we want to have it so that it's black to move, because remember, if it is black to move, they would come to this square, and then we would move our rook here, and it would be checkmate. So how we do this is we just move the rook back. Now, what this does is it just keeps the position the same. We're still controlling this file, we're still controlling these squares, and the king is forced here. So after it comes here, we bring our rook up, and that's checkmate. So that's one of these special occasions that can sometimes come up. And that's basically it for this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and turn on post notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one.